However, fate had other plans. Ekene had indeed spotted her. Perhaps her attempt to hide made her more noticeable. He approached her stall with the others trailing behind. "You there," he said kindly. "You are Kiru, right?" Kiru stood up straight, heart studying. "Yes," she replied, aware that a few nearby market women were now watching curiously. The guard smiled. "Good. The prince sent me to find you." A gasp came from one of the women eavesdropping. Others began to murmur, "Prince? Which prince?" An old fish seller asked, eyes wide. Ignoring them, Ekene continued, lowering his voice a bit. "Prince Obinna is here with his father. They are at the home of Chifokeke. The prince would like to see you if you are free." Nkiru could hardly believe her ears. Obinna was here, and he remembered her and wanted to see her, but immediately she grew anxious. I'm selling for my stepmother. I don't know if I can just leave." One of the other palace attendants stepped forward, carrying a small bag. "We can pay for all your plantains right now," he said without haggling. He counted out money and handed it to her. It was more than a fair price, generous even. They quickly picked up the plantains. "Now, you have no more business here," he smiled. The fish seller and some others looked on, astonished at how this ragged girl was being treated with such importance. Nkiru, still shocked, tied the money in the edge of her wrapper. She knew Nneka would be overjoyed at the money, but also suspicious of how she got it. Ekene noticed her worried expression. "Don't worry, we will explain to your family if needed. The prince only requests a bit of your time." Nkiru nodded, a tiny smile forming despite her nerves. "Okay." She followed the guards through the market. Villagers stepped aside, eyeing the little procession. Some recognized the men from the Igwe's last visit and whispered among themselves. Kiru kept her eyes down, too shy to meet anyone's gaze. They led her to Chifokeke's compound, one of the biggest houses in the village, painted white with blue windows and a searchlight dish on the roof. In the compound, under a canopy, where a few chairs were arranged as if they had been having a meeting or reception, she saw Obinna. He was sitting with his leg outstretched on a stool. His ankle was bandaged, but he was clearly on the mend. He was talking with an older man in a regal attire, which must be his father, the king, and a woman in an elegant blouse and two wrappers with a scarf, a chafo, tied around her head, probably the queen, his mother, called Lol. Nkiru suddenly felt very self-conscious. She was still in her rough market clothes, a bit of dirt on her from carrying plantains. And here was a king and queen and a prince wanting to see her. She almost wanted to run away, but Ekene gently ushered her forward. Obinna looked up and his face lit up with genuine grin when he saw Nkiru. "Nkiru," he said happily. His mother, the queen, raised an eyebrow in surprise at his enthusiasm, and the Igwe paused in his talking to follow Obinna's gaze. They saw a modest village girl approached timidly. Kiru bent her knees in a respectful curtsy, trembling slightly. "Good afternoon, your majesties," she greeted quietly, addressing the Igwe and his wife. Then, "Good afternoon, Obinna, I mean my prince," she added, unsure how to address him in front of his parents. Obinna chuckled, and even the Igwe gave a tiny amused smile at her correction. Obinna said, "Father, mother, this is Nkiru, the girl I told you about, the one who saved me." The Igwe, a stout man with a dignified presence, nodded slowly. The queen looked at Nkiru with a polite, if somewhat cool smile. "Thank you for helping our son," the queen said graciously, though her eyes took in Nkiru's appearance with curiosity and perhaps a hint of judgment. "It was nothing, my queen," Kiru said, voice barely above a whisper. "Anyone would have done the same." At that, Obinna shook his head. "Not anyone, Kiru. Many passed by and did not find me. You did, and you heard me even when you didn't know who I was." The Igwe cleared his throat. "Yes, young lady, we are grateful. We wanted to thank you formally before we depart back to Umri." He gestured, and one of his heads came forward with a small parcel. The Igwe took it and extended it to Nkiru. "Please, accept this token of appreciation from the royal family." Nkiru hesitated, then with shaking hands accepted the parcel. Inside was a beautiful piece of wrapper cloth, real Hollandaise wax print, a kind that was very expensive, and on top of it was a small envelope. She opened the envelope and her eyes widened to see a stack of naira notes. money inside. It was far more money than she had ever held in her life. Thank you, Your Majesty. This is too much. She stammered, overwhelmed. Nonsense, said the king. Our son's life has no price. We are glad he encountered someone with a good heart like yours. Kiru felt tears of gratitude welling up. For once, someone was praising her rather than insulting her. But at the same time, she was aware of the other people around, including Chief Okeke and some villagers in the background. And she wondered what they must be thinking seeing her being thanked by royalty. Obinna looked at his father meaningfully, as if asking for something. The Igwe stroked his grey beard, then said, Yes, my son, go ahead. The queen looked between them with a trace of concern, as if she already could guess what Obinna was thinking. Obinna beckoned Kiru to come a little closer, away from the small crowd. She did so, clutching the gifted wrapper and money to her chest nervously. Kiru, he said softly, I'm so happy to see you again. I wanted to come sooner, but my parents insisted I recover first and only come with them. How have you been? Kiru managed a small smile. I'm okay. I'm glad you are okay too. I was worried if your leg got better. He nodded. It's healing. Still hot if I walk too long, but I'll be fine. He paused, looking deeply at her as if searching for something. I haven't forgotten your kindness or your beautiful singing. In fact, I told my mother about how sweetly you sing. Kiru's eyes widened. You did? From behind them, the queen watched with a reserved expression as her son talked to this village girl. The Igwe too observed quietly. Yes, Obinna continued. And I also told them. He took a breath, gathering courage. I told them, I want to be your friend, to help you if I can. You saved me, but also I feel like I've known you longer than just that day. Kiru felt her heart flutter. Was she hearing right? A prince wanted to be her friend? I would like to be your friend too, she said softly. It was almost catching in her throat from disbelief and happiness. Obinna smiled brilliantly. That makes me very happy, Kiru. It seemed like he wanted to say more, but perhaps because of the audience and his parents' presence, he held back. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object. It was a pendant, a tiny carving of a wooden bird on a black cord. I made this while thinking of that day in the forest, he said, the bird in a nightingale. Because your voice reminded me of one, I want you to have it. He gently placed the pendant in her hand. Kiru's eyes filled with tears. No one had ever given her such a thoughtful gift. I will treasure it, she whispered. Behind them, they heard the Igwe clearing his throat again, and some murmurs as if people were wondering what the prince was telling the girl. They turned to face the group again. Kiru hastily wiped her tears and stood respectfully. Obinna's mother, the queen, approached now. Her face kind but firm. Kiru dear, we thank you again. You must be leaving now to return home. Stay well and may God bless you. The way she said it was polite, but Kiru could sense she was being gently dismissed. Of course, a princess' world was far from hers. She couldn't expect to stay long. Kiru curtsied again. Safe journey, Your Majesties. Thank you, she said, her voice filled with genuine gratitude. As she stepped back, Obinna held her gaze one more time and smiled as he was helped up by the guards. He had to go. His duty was to follow his parents. Kiru understood. With a heavy yet hopeful heart, she left the compound clutching her gifts. On the way home, Kiru felt like she was walking on air. The villagers, who had seen the exchange, looked at her with new eyes. Some children who usually avoided her now ran up to ask, Kiru, is it true the prince talked to you? What did he give you? One even said, maybe you are not cursed after. That last comment hurt a bit, but she realized it came from them shifting their thinking. If a prince favors her, maybe she isn't so unlucky. However, along with the curious and awed looks, there were also some disapproving frowns. One was from the two gossiping women who had insulted her looks before. Now they eyed her suspiciously. No doubt, their tongues would soon start waggling that Kiru had somehow charmed the prince. By the time she got home, Nneka was already waiting, having heard some rumor of what happened. Adaeze too was by the doorway looking equal parts astonished and envious. Kiru presented the money and wrapper to her stepmother, explaining haltingly that the Igwe's family had given them to her in thanks for helping the prince when he was hurt. Nneka's eyes gleamed at the cash and the fine clothes. "This is for us?" she asked, barely hiding her excitement. "They said it's a token of appreciation," Nkiru said. Nneka, forgetting to even scold Nkiru for leaving the market, broke into a rare smile. "Well, they should thank you. Our family saved the prince," she declared, as if she had any hand in it. She held the expensive wrapper to her body. "This will make a lovely blouse and skirt. Ah, God has finally remembered us," she exclaimed to Adeze. Adeze forced a smile. "Yes, Mama." But as Nkiru passed by her, Adeze hissed quietly. "Don't think this makes you special. They just paid you like a charity case." Kiru said nothing, but inside she hoped it was more than just charity. Obina's eyes and words told her it was friendship and maybe even something warmer. The months that followed were the happiest Nkiru had ever experienced. Prince Obina did not forget her. In fact, a few weeks after that market day, a messenger delivered a letter to her. Yes, a real letter on pretty stationery addressed to Miss Nkiruka, Amocha village. It was from Obina. With trembling hands, she opened it. Neither Nneka nor Adeze could read English well, but Nkiru thankfully knew how to read from a few years in primary school. In the letter, Obina wrote that he hoped she was doing well. He said his ankle was fully healed and he was busy learning the ways of the leadership from his father, but he thought of her often. He wrote that her bravery and kindness inspired him and he considered her a dear friend, even though they came from different worlds. He ended by saying he planned to visit Amocha again soon, specifically to see her, with his parents' permission. Kiru must have read that letter 100 times. She kept it wrapped in a plastic sheet and hidden under her sleeping mat where Nneka wouldn't find it. She was sure Nneka or Adeze would tear it up out of spite if they saw how much it meant to her. True to his word, Obina visited again, this time without his full entourage. He came on a Saturday afternoon, driving himself in a simple black car, which caused a stir in the village seeing a prince driving himself. He parked under the old mango tree near the compound. By this time, Nneka, seeing that the prince truly favored Nkiru, had drastically changed her tunes in public. She now spoke of Nkiru as a brave girl to neighbors and allowed her to dress a little better, using some money to get Nkiru a couple of new second-hand dresses from the market. But in private, Nkiru still did most of the chores, though Nneka was somewhat less harsh. She wouldn't want the prince to see scars or bruises on Nkiru now. That day, Obina greeted Nneka cautiously and brought gifts. A bottle of orange Fanta for her, which delighted her as sweet drinks were rare treats, and some chocolate for Adeze and Nkiru to share. Adeze, of course, preened and tried to capture his attention with flirtatious smiles. She was an attractive girl and not shy, but Obina only had polite nods for her. His eyes sought out Nkiru. Obina asked Nneka if he could take Nkiru on a walk to the village square. Nneka, though internally fuming that it wasn't Adeze he was interested in, plastered a smile on and said, "Of course, Prince. Nkiru, what are you waiting for? Go with the prince and behave yourself." She shot Nkiru a warning glance not to embarrass her. As they walked through the village, villagers watched in amazement. The prince, strolling casually with the usually shunned ugly girl. Some children were trailed behind at a distance, giggling and wondering what was happening. Obina ignored the looks. He talked to Nkiru as if they were old friends. He told her about his town, about how he had a dog that he thought she would like, and how he was learning to play the udu drum. Nkiru, in turn, though shy at first, opened up about little things. She told him about a playful goat at the compound that always tried to eat her cassava peels, and how the sky in the bush looked at night with a million stars since there were no electric lights around. They found a quiet spot under a mango tree away from praying eyes and sat down on a low wooden bench. The evening sun cast long shadows and the air was cooler. Obina turned to her with a serious expression after a comfortable silence. "Kiru, I want to ask you something important. Her heart touched. Yes. He took a deep breath. Would you consider coming to Uri, my home, for a visit? My parents have invited you. I convinced them to invite you. My mother is curious about you, and my father, I think he respects you. They saw how happy I was after meeting you. They said you could come for a weekend, maybe bring your stepmother or someone if needed. Kiru was stunned. Your palace? Me? I I don't know. The thought scared her. She had never traveled far, never seen a palace except maybe on TV, and certainly never been an invited guest of royalty. Seeing her anxiety, Obina gently placed his hand over hers. That small contact made her stomach flutter. It's just a thought. You don't have to say yes. I want you to see my world, just like I've seen a bit of yours. And truthfully, he gulped. I want my parents to know you better. They know I'm very fond of you. Kiru couldn't help but blush. She lowered her head. I'm fond of you too, she whispered. Obina smiled and continued. I know we haven't known each other for very long yet, but I feel something strong, Kiru. I admire you. You are kind, brave, and you have such a pure heart despite everything. I think I'm falling in love with you. Kiru looked up sharply, eyes wide in disbelief. Did she hear right? Her? Someone loving her? It seemed like an impossible dream. Obina, how? I'm just... She faltered, thinking, I'm ugly, I'm nobody. He seemed to read her thoughts. You are not just anything. You are incredible. Do you know what Nkiru means? The future is greater. I think whoever named you knew you would have a bright future. Nkiru's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of a confusing, overwhelming happiness. My father named me, she said, voice shaking slightly. He used to tell me that the best is yet to come. I held on to that whenever things were bad. Obina nodded. He was right. You deserve happiness. I want to give you that if you will let me. By now, the meaning of his words was clear. He was talking about something much more serious than friendship or even a simple romance. He was hinting at a life together. Kiru could hardly breathe. She had to be honest with him. Obina, I am honored, but I'm called the ugly bad luck girl. Your parents, your people, they would never accept me. I'm nobody, and worse, they think I'm cursed. His hand tightened on hers, and he looked into her eyes with determination. I don't care what they think. I know who you are. Mma Dinobi. Beauty is in the heart. My grandmother used to tell me that, and it's true. Your heart is the most beautiful I have known. I will talk to my parents. Give me time, but please, say you will be with me. Marry me in Kiru. Not right away, but someday soon. I promise I will stand by you. Kiru's tears spilled over. This was everything she secretly dreamed of, but never imagined could happen. Yet, it was also terrifying. She thought of Nneka and her desert's likely fury, of the villagers' scorn, of the king, and the queen's probable refusal. But then, she looked at Obina, kind, earnest, loving, and she felt a spark of courage. He had a lion's heart in him, and with him, maybe she could be strong again. Yes, she whispered, barely audible. She cleared her throat and said a little louder, yes, I will marry you. Saying it felt like jumping off a cliff into the unknown, but also like finally spreading wings. Obina let out a breath he was holding and broke into a wide smile, his eyes bright. In his joy, he did something culturally. He gently drew her into an embrace right there under the mango tree where anyone could see. Some onlooking teenagers gasped and giggled at the sight of a prince hugging Nkiru. She stiffened for a second in surprise, then relaxed against him, feeling safe for perhaps the first time in forever. The next months were a whirlwind. Obina had to return home and formally inform his parents of his intention. As Nkiru predicted, the Igwe and Lolo initially were not pleased. They had expected their son to marry perhaps a princess from another kingdom, or at least a well-born woman from the city. The idea of him marrying a poor village girl and one with a reputation of ugliness and bad luck was almost unthinkable. Obina argued passionately. His parents said they needed time to consider, hoping perhaps he would change his mind, but he didn't. He visited Amucha more frequently, each time bringing small gifts for Nneka, trying to win her over, and always sharing attention on Nkiru. The villagers moved from shock to gossip to divided opinions. Some said Nkiru has used juju charms to tie the prince to her. Others said it was a blessing from God for her kindness. A few kind ones rejoiced that her fortune had changed, but many, especially young women who fancied themselves more beautiful or suitable for a prince, were jealous and cruel behind her back. Nkiru tried to ignore the negativity. She focused on developing the courage and grace she would need to stand by Obina's side. She also tried to soften her stepmother's heart, now that there was a chance for better life for all. Nneka, who was always swayed by wealth and status, certainly enjoyed the attention and gift from the prince. However, she also quietly schemed. She thought to herself, if the prince truly wants to marry into this family, wouldn't it be better if he married my real daughter Adeze? Adeze is beautiful, not this ugly thing. One day, Nneka broached the idea to Obina indirectly by praising Adeze's qualities in front of him and lamenting that Adeze was of marriageable age but still looking for a husband. Obina politely acknowledged Adeze was a fine young woman but showed no further interest, which frustrated Nneka. Adeze herself attempted to charm Obina whenever possible. She would dress in her best clothes and find excuses to join conversations. Once, she cooked a special pepper soup and brought it to him, saying, "I made this just for you, my prince." They said the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Obina thanked her, but then shared the soup with Nkiru and others instead of lavishing praise on Adeze. In fact, we remarked that the soup could use more salt, which made Adeze furious in private. Seeing her attempt fail, Nneka grew desperate. The village wedding date had been set. After long persuasion, the Igwe and Lolo reluctantly agreed to come to Amucha for a traditional marriage ceremony. They were still uneasy, especially the queen, but Obina had made it clear he would not marry anyone else. The king finally said, "If she makes you happy, so be it, but I pray we won't regret this." They likely hoped perhaps Nkiru's rumored bad luck wouldn't haunt their son, and maybe the girl would transform in nobility with time. In the week leading up to the wedding, Nneka decided to make one last attempt to swap brides. She confided in Adeze her wide plan. During the traditional wedding, there is a moment where the bride goes to give the groom a cup of palm wine in the presence of both families. Nneka schemed that they could try to send Adeze out with the cup instead of Nkiru, dressed similarly in the sort of trick, to see if the prince would accept her. It was a foolish plan. Obina would certainly recognize Nkiru versus Adeze, but Nneka convinced herself that perhaps in the excitement and with Adeze veiled, the prince might take the wine, and by custom, that would seal the marriage to whoever offered it. Nkiru overheard part of the plan late one night when Nneka thought she was asleep. She felt a pang of fear, but her stepmother stooped so low. She knew Adeze hated her now more than ever for stealing the prince's heart, so possibly yes. Kiru decided to warn Obina discreetly when she saw him next, and also asked an elderly woman from the village who had been supportive to be by her side to prevent any swap. That elder was Mama Ude, one of the few who had shown kindness once the engagement was announced, telling Nkiru, "My daughter, God has a way of lifting the humble. Don't mind those who talk. Be a good wife and prove them wrong." Mamude agreed to help ensure only Nkiru would play the bride's role. The wedding day finally arrived. It was a bright morning with the sun shining and a cool breeze carrying the scent of blooming frangipani. The whole village was excited because a prince's wedding in their village was a grand affair for all. Women from the village helped Nkiru get ready. They brought out the best they had. A gorgeous church wrapper in a deep blue with a gold patterns was tied around her waist, and a matching blouse was worn on top. They adorned her with coral beads around her neck and wrist. One woman applied light powder to her face to reduce the shine. and brushed a touch of red on her lips. They tied a gele, head wrap, in Igbo bridal style on her head. When they were Kiru looked at herself in the mirror, shirt someone held up. She almost didn't recognize the figure. It was still her, thin frame, nervous eyes, birthmark on the cheek. But somehow, wearing such a finery made her look different, almost confident. Still, she felt anxious. The finery couldn't hide everything she felt insecure about. She prayed silently, God, please, be with me today. Please, don't let anything go wrong. Outside, the sound of music started. Igbo drummers and the Ogene gong being struck. The groom's family had arrived with dancing and celebration as is tradition. Obina, the groom, was waiting in his own traditional attire, an Isiagu shirt, the richly decorated shirt with lion head motifs, a red cap on his head symbolizing chieftaincy, and he held an horsetail whisk. Despite the pageantry around him, his eyes were searching for Nkiru. The ceremony began with kola nut blessings by elders and introductions between the two families. Kiru, as the bride, stayed inside the house with a few women until the moment for her grand entrance. She was supposed to come out carrying a cup of palm wine to give to her groom as per Ebanko, the wine carrying ceremony. As the time neared, Mamude stayed close by Nkiru's side, ready to fend off Nneka or Adeze if they tried to interfere. And indeed, Nneka attempted one thing. She said, "Oh, Kiru's head tie is not done right. Let me fix it." And when she got close, she whispered harshly, "You better make sure the prince takes that wine from you. If he hesitates, I will push Adeze forward." Kiru just looked at her stepmother sadly. Even on this day, Nneka's heart was full of envy and selfishness. But Nkiru said nothing, only nodded and looked away. Finally, Kiru was handed the wooden cup filled with frothy palm wine by her eldest uncle, one of the few family members who still claimed her. They had come to partake when they heard she was marrying royalty. Of course, the protocol was explained. Kiru would search among the crowd of guests for her husband-to-be and offer him the cup. If he accepts and drinks, it means he has been accepted by her family and the marriage is sealed. With a deep breath, Kiru stepped out. A young maiden walked before her, sprinkling flower petals as was done sometimes in modern Igbo weddings. Nkiru's eyes scanned the crowd. She saw so many faces, villagers, relatives, strangers from the prince's side, all watching her. Some with pity, some with doubt, some already snickering. She heard a whisper, "Is that the bride? So plain," and some with kind smiles. Her hands trembled slightly as he held the cup of wine. Then she locked eyes with Obina across the courtyard. He stood a distance away among the crowd. As per custom, he pretended to be hiding among the men, but he was right there, beaming at her. In that moment, Nkiru forgot the crowd and only saw him. His smile gave her strength. As she walked towards him, a few people tried to playfully draw her attention away. A part of the fun. Sometimes, others beckoned as if they are the groom to tease the bride. Nkiru politely kept walking, shaking her head with a shy smile when a drunk uncle joked, "Over here." She knew her Obina. She would go only to him. Reaching Obina, she knelt down on one knee as tradition dictated and offered the cup up to him with both hands. Her eyes looking up at his lovingly, Obina took the cup with a grateful smile and raised it in salute. "I have found my love," he declared in a strong voice, enough for many to hear. He drank deeply from the cup without breaking eye contact with her, then helped her to her feet. The crowd cheered, some out of genuine happiness, some out of just enjoying the spectacle. The king and queen, watching, clapped politely, though still with some reservation. Nneka clapped too, though her smile was half forced, half relieved that nothing had gone wrong in that moment. But something did begin to happen, something none of them could have expected or explained. As Obina held Nkiru's hand up, leading her to the center where the families would give her final blessings, a sudden hush gradually fell over the gathering. It started with those nearest the couple, then spread outward like a ripple of shock. Murmurs began. People were pointing at the bride, at Kiru. Kiru felt uneasy with the sudden change in atmosphere. Why were people gasping and murmuring? Did she trip? Did something tear on her outfit? She looked at Obina, but he was staring at her with an expression of pure astonishment, though not of horror. He looked amazed. "Oh, what is it?" she whispered, her heart starting to race. Obina reached a hand towards her face, but stopped short, not touching, just hovering as if unsure. "Kiru, you look," he stammered. Mahmoud from the side exclaimed, "Chimo, it's a miracle." Someone brought out a handheld mirror, the size of a small plate, and held it up in front of Nkiru. "Look," they urged. Nkiru looked. At first, she couldn't recognize the face she saw. It was as if another woman stood in front of her, one with flawless, smooth dark skin, glowing with health, with bright, beautiful eyes, unhindered by sadness, her lips full and curved in a delicate shape, her nose straight and fine. The birthmark that was so long sat on her right cheek was gone, completely vanished without a trace. The uneven rough patches of skin from childhood scars had smoothed out. Her face, it was truly beautiful. She blinked and even touched her own cheek in disbelief. And the reflection did the same. It was her, but transformed. Gasps and shouts rose around. One of the gossiping women practically shrieked, "Is that Nkiru or another person?" Adeze, who had been watching with jealousy, dropped the fan she was holding, her mouth open in shock, seeing her stepsister now radiantly beautiful. Nneka's eyes wide, quickly came closer and peered at Nkiru. She even reached out and rubbed at Nkiru's cheek, as if to see if it was makeup or paint, but it was real. Kiru flinched a little at her stepmother's touch, and Nneka stumbled back, crossing herself and muttering, "Chime, this is unbelievable." A wave of realization swept the crowd. Some people began clapping and cheering wildly. Others knelt down thanking God, as Nigerians do when they witness a powerful event. To them, this was nothing short of a miracle. The ugly duckling had become a swan right before their eyes. Obina laughed in pure joy, finally finding his voice. He gently took Nkiru by the shoulders and said, "I told you, the best is yet to come." Tears of joy streamed down Nkiru's now radiant face. She didn't understand how or why this happened, whether it was God answering her prayers at the most dramatic time, or maybe her mother's spirit watching over her, or some spell broken. But in that moment, she didn't care. All she knew was that she felt free. For the first time in her life, when people looked at her, they didn't look with disgust or pity. They looked at her as one of God's beautiful creations. She had always been beautiful inside, but now her outside finally reflected that inner beauty for all to see. The rest of the ceremony went by a happy blow. The whole village rejoiced as the couple received blessings from both families. The Igwe and Lolo now smiling widely, clearly relieved, and also taking the transformation as a sign of divine favor. The queen even embraced Nkiru warmly and whispered, "Welcome to the family, my daughter." That brought fresh tears to Nkiru's eyes. Nneka and Adeze were left in the crowd, hardly knowing how to react. Some villagers smiled at them, knowing how poorly they had treated Nkiru before. One elder said to Nneka, "You see your life? You drove away a child of destiny." Nneka had no answer. She just watched as Nkiru, glowing and happy, was celebrated. In that moment, perhaps, some regret pricked her heart. Adeze felt both resentment and, strangely, a savor of admiration. Nkiru had endured, and fate rewarded her. As evening fell and the celebration moved to feasting, music and dancing, Obina and Nkiru sat together under the old udara tree for a moment of quiet amid the festivities. Kiru leaned on his shoulder, both of them dressed now in their former outfits, but tired and happy. Around them, lanterns were being lit as dusk approached, and fireflies blinked in the bushes. "I can hardly believe everything today," Kiru murmured. "Obim, I'm afraid I might wake up and find it's all a dream." He gently tilted her head face up to him. In the soft glow of sunset, her beauty took his breath away again, but he loved that it was still her eyes, her same kind eyes. "This is no dream, Nkiru. If it is, then we are dreaming together and I never want to wake up." She smiled. "Thank you for believing in me, for loving me when I was called ugly. I still don't know why or how I changed, but He placed a finger on her lips slightly. Shh, it doesn't matter. You were always beautiful. Now everyone can see what I saw. But even if this hadn't happened, you will still be my bride tonight. Kiru felt a warmth in her chest hearing that. She hugged him tightly, remembering all the lonely nights, the tears, the prayers. It all felt worth it now. Not far off, she spotted Nneka standing hesitantly near one of the cooking fires, looking in their direction. Their eyes met. Nneka then did something Kiru never expected. She slowly came over, wringing her hands, looking humble. Nkiruka, she began. The name sounded strange on her tongue because she seldom used it kindly. Or should I say my daughter? She gave a nervous laugh. I want to apologize for all the hardship I gave you. Kiru was taken aback. She stood up, as did Obina next to her. Stepmother, she said softly. Nneka shook her head. No, call me Mama if you want. If you can find it in your heart, I was wrong. We are all wrong about you. The gods have shown today that you are special, not cursed. Please forgive me, Nkiru. She actually teared up, looking genuinely remorseful and perhaps fearful too, that the daughter she mistreated, now a queen to be, might seek vengeance. Kiru felt a well of emotion. This woman had caused her so much pain, yet without her pushing, Kiru might not have escaped to the bush that day and met her destiny. It was hard, but Kiru knew what she had to do. Her kind heart would not allow bitterness to linger. I forgive you, Mama, she said quietly, and she reached out and gave Nneka a hug. Nneka was surprised, but she patted Nkiru's back awkwardly and wiped her own tears afterward. Adeze hovered nearby, looking unsure. Kiru also hugged Adeze, whispering, I hope we can be real sisters now. Adeze muttered congrats and sniffled, trying to hide her mixed feelings. This reconciliation made Obina smile. He admired Nkiru even more for it. Many in the village who saw it nodded in approval. It was a good sign for the bride to be forgiven and bring peace. Night fell, and under a bright full moon, the celebrations went on. There was a big bonfire in the center of the compound. People danced, men in their traditional red caps and shirts doing the Atirogu dance, women dancing gracefully to the beat of drums. Even Nkiru joined in, laughing, pulling the prince to dance with her. He, with a bit of playful reluctance, joined, doing his best to mimic the energetic dance steps to everyone's amusement. Later, after most guests had left and only close family remained, Obina and Nkiru sat together, quietly gazing at the starry sky. The future was uncertain. There would be a new challenges as she moved to her new home, learned to be a princess, and they would have to continue winning people's hearts. But they were not afraid. They had kindness, courage, and love on their side. As a cool night breeze ruffled Nkiru's hair, Obina took her hand and said, This is only the beginning of our story, Nkiru. She nodded, resting her hand against his shoulder. Yes, the beginning of something wonderful. And so, in the little Igbo village of Amocha, an ugly bad luck girl found her happily ever after with a prince who saw her true beauty. And although their story had reached a joyful high, everyone knew that life continued beyond wedding. There would be more adventures and lessons for Nkiru and her prince, more chances for her to shine, and for love to triumph over obstacle. But for now, under the gentle moonlight with the sounds of distant laughter and the aroma of night blooming flowers on the air, Nkiru closed her eyes, heart full, and smiled, excited to greet the future that was indeed far brighter than the past. Moral lesson: true beauty is not found in the face but in the heart. Kindness, courage, and resilience will always shine through, even when the world cannot see it at first. No matter how others label you, your worth is not defined by their opinions, but by your actions and the love you carry within. In the end, destiny finds and rewards those who remain good, even in the face of rejection and pain. This story teaches us that no one is truly ugly when their spirit is beautiful, and that love, when pure, sees beyond appearances. Thank you so much for watching this amazing story about Nkiru on African Stories by V. If you liked it and felt inspired with our journey, please show your support by clicking the like button, sharing with your friends, and leaving a comment below. To see more interesting stories and learn about different cultures, subscribe to African Stories by V, and do not forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Your support means a lot and helps us bring more stories to you. Until we meet again, stay connected, stay inspired, and keep smiling.